Welcome to My Hometown, the program that explores clubs, organizations, businesses, and issues across Nassau and Suffolk counties and sheds light on the different towns that are making a difference.
Hello and welcome to My Hometown. I'm Bill Horan, and today we're going to learn all about Nassau BOCES, which is focused on career and technical education, or CTE. Nassau BOCES provides hundreds of students every year with an introduction to plumbing, carpentry, and automotive technology, along with many other industries that desperately need workers on Long Island. Our guests today are Judith Hynes, the Associate Director, and Dr. Christopher Korolczuk, the Assistant Director, both from Nassau BOCES Regional Schools and Instructional Programs. Judith and Christopher, welcome to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Thank you so much for having us.
Let's start, Dr. Christopher, with you. Tell us about yourself and how you got started with BOCES.
I got started in BOCES back in 2005. I actually started as an assistant principal at one of the special education high schools. And after a short time as assistant principal, I became the principal, was there for approximately 17 years. And last July, I was given the opportunity to switch to regional schools and work with Judy. And it's been a fantastic year.
You're a very young man, so you must have taken that pretty much right out of college.
No, prior to that, but I appreciate the compliment. Prior to that, I was a teacher in Los Angeles, working within the Los Angeles Department of Juvenile Justice. And after that, came out to New York and worked within New York City for students with special needs and also at Rikers Island Jail as a teacher.
That's some background. You really covered everything with that. Judy, tell us about your background.
Well, I came to Nassau BOCES in 2008. I came as the principal for the TAP program, which was located in Seaford. It was the program for students with children and expecting moms. And that program closed in 2010, and I moved up to central office as an executive manager to oversee the summer school program. And since that time have moved into the assistant director's position and now the associate director's position. I'm from New Hampshire originally. If you could tell, I have a little bit of an accent.
Okay.
And I was a teacher for 13 years, teaching basically CTE. I was teaching distributive ed marketing.
Those are some backgrounds. It's really amazing. Somehow you just don't think of that. BOCES to me seems to be kind of a hidden gem. It's like the forest we all see, but we don't know what animals are in there or what's going on. Can you tell us, for those of us who really don't know much about BOCES, what's different from the typical public school or how we would perceive a school?
I would say, Bill, that a typical school offers an academic program for all students. There certainly are opportunities for special needs students, and there are some opportunities for things like fine arts, some music, chorus. They put on a senior play every year and that sort of thing. But BOCES focuses on the trades mostly. We have 48 programs across our three sites, and while we do have music and performing arts, as well as small animal care and vet science and dental assisting, we have a lot of the medical and health programs and things like welding, carpentry, plumbing, and so forth. Schools, public schools can't really afford to offer those programs. The equipment, the space that's needed to offer those programs, and the teachers that are mostly journeyman tradespeople who have come to us as teachers as a second career to teach those programs.
And that's a real specialty in those fields, teaching. And that obviously
Absolutely.
You have to know that in order to teach it.
Yes.
You have to, what do they say, be there and done that. So
yes, absolutely.
They have to know their ranks. Christopher, is anything else you'd like to add to that?
For me, coming from a special education background, one of the big things that's talked about in special ed is called differentiated instruction. And that's really meeting every student where they're at on an individual basis. And that's really what we do on a greater scale within our department. We really meet the individual needs of students that maybe, their first priority is not going to a four-year college or something like that. Or even if it is, we have programs that maybe are a stepping stone to give them real life experience in that field prior to starting college. So, as a department, we really have individualized programs that really combine the needs of the students, the desires of the students, the needs of the school districts, and also the needs of the industries in our local area.
Now, let's take a look at the big picture. If I said to myself, I want to go to BOCES, first of all, does the student say that, or does the school say to them, I think you would do well at BOCES, or you have certain skills that would fit there? So who makes that decision?
It's really a combination. Parents usually are the ones who lead the conversation the most. Districts don't normally say you would be a good fit for BOCES, because I think for some students that seems like it may be pigeonholing them, if you will. For the most part, it's a student's desire to look at a particular program because they have some kind of a desire to do something in that field. They then go to their guidance counselor, talk with their parents, and say, I really would like to look at this at BOCES. And we, bring the student in, we interview them. There's an application process. Students have to have a good academic record. They have to have a good attendance record. We do make exceptions for students that have maybe fallen off the wayside and are trying to find their path back on. But for the most part, it's a competitive process to get one of the seats that we have because they are very limited.
Now, if I was going to BOCES, would this be like going to Kellenberg High School as an 8th grader? Do I say I want to, start at BOCES? Is it a full-time, or does BOCES teach in conjunction with Mineola High School or East Meadow High School, whatever the local school is?
So for the most part, students within our schools are in 11th or 12th grade. However, we do have some programs that are open to 10th graders. And students spend half their day at their district high school. Then the other half of the day, they come to one of our BOCES programs for the 2 years or possibly for all 3 years.
Do you ever get the question, because as you're answering, I'm just wondering, as a parent, if someone goes to BOCES, does this eliminate them from going on to college, or does this in any way hold them back if they decided they wanted to take a different career path?
Absolutely not. About 85% of our students go on to post-secondary education, even though they have acquired a technical endorsement and are able to go right out to the workforce. Many of them choose to go on and study that particular course on a post-secondary level and maybe work while they're doing that to eliminate some of that debt that we were talking about.
You see the big grin coming up on my face because I'm thinking, these are some really smart. They've got a skill coming out of school that they could market and get a very nice income immediately. And or if they so choose, you're telling me most of them do continue.
They do.
So they have this aid that they could either supplement their college training, pay for it, almost like an athletic scholarship in a way. They're going to be working, but they're getting money and good money for a trade that's needed.
Absolutely.
And if they choose to stay in that trade, they can do it the other way. So they get the best of both worlds.
We have many students who will supplement their income while they're in college by working in that field. For instance, we have a barbering program. And I know of a few stories of students who have gone on to like a business management or some kind of an entrepreneur degree that they're interested in. And their way through college is to cut hair for people in their dorm or on campus for $20 here or there for a cut. And it supplements their income as they go through school.
That's a real racket, and I'm saying that smiling and praising, and I mean that's creative, and as you said, that's entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. They're getting this. Are there any that really went on to something that you'd say, oh, you probably know this name, or we have this student coming up, he just opened up 49 hamburger places that can compete with McDonald's and Burger King?
Well, the one that comes to mind the most is supervisor of Oyster Bay, Joe Saladino, is a graduate of Barry Tech.
Really?
And he was a plumbing student, I believe. And he, used that skill to help him along his way. And just spoke yesterday at our first ever career signing day.
Now I'm going to tell you a funny story. He was one of our guests here on the show. And I keep informal records, and he had the longest first answer of any guest, 8 minutes and 43 seconds. And now we could laugh at that, but I really enjoyed it. It was a very informative answer. And I think at the end of the session, he answered 4 questions. So, I mean, they were long answers, but he was like a college professor and not pompous, and I don't mean that in any negative way. He was very thorough. He was explaining where wastewater goes, etc. And I found it very interesting. I don't know if everybody did, but I thought he was very thorough in doing it, and I thought he'd make a great college professor someday if he chose to go into that field. I didn't know he was already a plumbing expert, but maybe that's why he's involved with the water aspects of things. So
he's a great proponent of BOCES and is one of our best cheerleaders.
That's always good to have.
Yes,
and again, he was terrific in being a guest on our show, and he was just here for our 50th anniversary. Before we go further, I'd like our audience to know that you're listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan, and today we're learning about Nassau BOCES and their courses in career and technical education. Our guests are Judith Hynes, the Associate Director, and Dr. Christopher Korolczuk, and he's the Assistant Director, both from Nassau BOCES Regional Schools and Instructional Programs. Can you tell us what are some of the misconceptions that people might have about BOCES? They either come to you or that they're just confused about?
One of the misconceptions that Judy was mentioning before is, and going back to the term, Bill, that you used, is blue collar. And especially in a ultra competitive regional area like Long Island, so many, as a parent myself, so many parents feel that college is the only option, and every student must go to college. But that's not where every student's interests, abilities, skills lie. And I think that's one of the misconceptions around our career and technical education programs, that working with your hands, as we were talking about before, who are you more ready to call, a paralegal or a plumber? And going back to your reference before, everyone needs a plumber.
When I have a leak, I want that plumber. The paralegal can wait.
and all of us fall into that same boat. And, one of the benefits to the students, not only are we, do they have the option to go to college and have that ability, but we're also giving them life skills and soft work skills to prepare them for a specific career field or any career field. And when you look at, especially post-COVID, when you look at whether it be unemployment rates in the regional area, oftentimes employers will say that students are lacking some of those basic skills when they're coming out of college. So maybe someone will have a degree in fine arts from Harvard, but as you referenced before, what meaningful employment are they going to do with that, as opposed to coming to one of our programs and having a skill that they take great pride in? It meets their interests, and there's a local need for it. So that's really what BOCES brings to the table.
And from what I understand, Judy, that you work with the local area and find out what needs are really there. So if we need a certain profession, you guys kind of stress that in the area to the extent you can, so that you'll provide us with more veterinarian workers or hospital workers, et cetera, et cetera. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. Yeah. We belong to a number of workforce development councils, and we work with many of the post-secondary institutions as well as the labor unions. In fact, we were just here on the campus a couple of weeks ago.
Here meaning Nassau Community College. We got to get a commercial in for the school every once in a while.
Of course. Talking about what we can offer here at Nassau Community College that our students can use to move forward in their careers. I think one of the other things that's an interesting point about your question about misconception. We have a gem up in Syosset. That's the Long Island High School for the Arts. And a lot of districts have phenomenal music programs and instrumental programs and choirs and so forth that compete all around the country. I mean, they're wonderful. Our program, our CTE program at Long Island High School for the Arts, is for that student, that particular student that you have in that choir in that theater production that's going to do that for a career. It's not something that's just I play this and I do that, and I'm going to go on and become an entrepreneur, I'm going to go on and become a psychologist, and I happen to sing. This is for somebody who is going to be on Broadway, somebody who is going to record music. We have multitudes of alumni who come back every year and work with us and do the Lisa Faculty Alumni Show, and we work with this group that's called Broadway Supports Lisa. And it's for those programs, those particular programs are for those kids that are just a little bit more, just a little step above, so that they're not, they are kids that end up in the Philharmonic. They are kids who end up on Broadway, and not maybe, yes, they could be the star of the show, but they're also the ones who are the stagehands, the ones who are doing the sound and the lighting and the music. It's a phenomenal opportunity.
What a great and interesting career. And if this was a true false, I definitely would have gotten that question wrong and never thought of it because, again, you used the term, we've been throwing it around, blue collar, but to me, the arts, that's a whole different area, almost like subject specific, let's call it. And I just never would have thought of them for that. And here we are sitting outside Manhattan where they must need people for these professions.
Absolutely.
And you're training them. So what a win-win for everybody.
It's a phenomenal place. It's almost like, it reminds me of it's like a conservatory. It's a campus all on its own, just like Barry Tech and GC Tech. But it has a little bit of a more of an artistic tone to it. Of course, there's a theater. There are practice rooms for music and so forth. It's really quite something to see.
I think you got to get your PR people out there shaking the ship a little bit, because I bet if you ask 9 out of 10 people as you walk down the street, a true false question about that, they would have the same answer as I would. Nope, I didn't know it. I thought of BOCES more in the trades like plumbing, as you said, or automotive, veterinary, EMT, things like that. But I would just never associate it with the arts. Now, you have a program, All Means All. What is that? That tells me nothing about it, so you've got to be the one to explain it.
So that's actually legislation that's been proposed. One of the issues that we have at BOCES is that we're a tuition-based program. So in order for students to attend our programs, the district has to pay a tuition for them to come.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said the district, so it's not the individual student is paying extra,
no,
it's the district.
It's the district.
Okay, thank you.
So it becomes part of their budget. And unfortunately, with all the demands that are put on school districts, many of them can't afford to send more than a few students. When they may, if there's a high school of 1,800 students, they might send us 10. And there certainly could be hundreds of kids that would want to come, but they don't have the fund to do that. So there was legislation that's been introduced. Our district superintendent, Dr. Robert Dillon, was the one who worked with a couple of legislators to come up with this All Means All, meaning that everybody should have access to the BOCES programs regardless of whether or not their district has that funding put aside. So All Means All is, if it passes, and I believe it's got a House bill number to it now, that it would allow students like a charter school, any student that wants to come to BOCES that meets the requirements, and we do have some application process, and at LISA we have students have to audition and show a portfolio and that sort of thing. If they meet those requirements, they could come, and the district has to pay for them to come. So there's no more, we can't afford it, we don't have that kind of money. It could be a huge boon for BOCES, but it could also have a huge impact on the district's budgets in terms of having to send students to us instead of just cutting off at a particular limit.
When do you think this would come in, or is this seem to be rolling in the right direction?
It seems to be. It's made its way past a couple of House bills, and it has been assigned 2 numbers. We do have a couple of legislators who are backing the bill. Unfortunately, I'm not remembering who they are.
No, that's
at the
okay.
moment.
Just we want to root it in here.
But yes, I believe if it's been talked about on the Hill quite a bit, and I know that even the governor is talking about the idea that we need to look at this for all students.
It
so
definitely
all
seems
means
like
all, and not just those districts that have the extra money that can afford to send students to BOCES.
Before we go further, we'd like to let our audience know that you're listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan. Today we're learning about Nassau BOCES and their courses in career and technical education. Our guests are Judith Hynes, the Associate Director, and Dr. Christopher Korolczuk. He's the Assistant Director, both from Nassau BOCES Regional Schools and Instructional Programs. Did the pandemic affect the school at all, or your way of teaching, or did it open up new avenues?
So during the pandemic, I was within the special ed department, but now I'm seeing the aftermath. And for the most part, when we hear about the aftermath, it has very negative connotations. But what we're seeing, especially in our adult programs, is a tremendous boom in student enrollments and students coming back to our programs. And it really is a testament to the leadership within the department, our principals, assistant principals, and supervisors, but also within our adult programs. A lot of the advertisement happens by word of mouth, and the reputation of our programs precedes itself. And to have enrollment go from what we would call pandemic levels and now back to pre-pandemic levels in record time. Really speaks volumes about the integrity of the programs and the benefit that it brings to all of our adult learners.
Judith, when we talk about adult learners, how would you say your classes are broken up? Are they mostly high school people that we think of as going to BOCES, or is it someone coming back? And if so, what is kind of the average age of those people?
The average age of our adult ed program, 28. Basically, these are people who have been out working, who are either looking to make a change in their occupational outlook, or maybe working in a particular field and want to get more hands-on education. We have a number of CTE programs that we run for adults. We also have what we call the Adult Learning Center, and that is located at St. Bernard's in Levittown. We have about 1,600 students in that program, and they range in age from 18 to 70 who come to us to learn English as a second language, and who also look to get a GED or high school equivalency. Many of them are immigrants who come to us who are undocumented, who are looking for a way to gain employment, and the biggest hurdle that they find is the language. So we teach the language, and many of them then, once they grab the language and understand it, then they switch over to our CTE program and go into medical assisting or nurse assisting or vet assisting, dental, whatever.
Again, I'm sitting here so surprised because honestly what I'm hearing, you do it all.
Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm. And when you say CTE, I just want to mention for our audience, because I looked back and said, what does that CTE stand for? That's Career and Technical Education. So if someone is looking, like you said, now you mentioned someone who might have trouble with the language. Mm-hmm. So now they're limited to a very few number of jobs that might be out there at really kind of the lowest level. Mm-hmm. But if they can come and learn language enough to get through things and have a career, especially one of these careers where it's really needed today, and we need people, and I'm hearing more and more about that, this is a win-win for everybody, for the society, for the economy, and for the individual people themselves. Am I missing something?
No, I think you're spot on. We cover the continuum of services, and really, when you look at what Nassau BOCES does in collaboration with our school districts and industry partners, and for me especially as the son of an immigrant, what we're doing is we're really bringing the American dream to all of these students and adults. We're giving them the opportunity to become contributing members of society and fulfilled in their life, in their personal life. And, that's really what everyone wants. And to be able to do that through our programs really is a blessing.
Judy, do you have what we might think of as internships or work study or work-based programs for the students?
Yes, every student in a CTE program must complete 54 hours of work-based learning. That's required. In order for them to get a technical endorsement when they finish the program after 2 years, they have to meet certain specifications, and one of those is 54 hours of work-based learning. So that it's not an internship per se. It's not a paid internship, but they do go out at various times throughout the school year and work in the industry with our industry partners who also sit on our advisory boards. And they learn firsthand. Yesterday, for the first time ever, we had career signing day. So there were 22 students who are committed to a job when they graduate versus going to college. Their employers were there, spoke for them. We did signing letters of intent for them to attend full-time work July 1. We had a number, I think 8 of those students were also going into the military. And these are kids who came through our programs who did work-based learning in an auto shop or at a country club, and is now going to be hired as a sous chef and is going right into the job market. So we had this first ever career signing day, and it was phenomenal. Joe Saladino was our speaker.
Perfect. What could be more perfect?
Yeah, and it was just great. It was wonderful. Something we'll continue to do every year.
Well, then I want to take back one of my statements about your PR people, because they are doing a great job. And if you have that signing day, that's always kind of glorious. That parents are very proud. My son is going to school. My daughter, even if it's the lower division schools for sports or something, you're proud of them, and rightfully so.
Absolutely.
And for these people to come out, they're going to be part of the workforce, presumably for the next 20, 40, 60 years, maybe longer. Or at least using those schools and those abilities in some capacity that's helping both the community, Long Island, and themselves. That's a win all the way across. So you should be very proud of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do the students get the summers? I don't mean this as a joke, but do they get like the typical summer vacation, or are they there throughout the year?
No, it's a regular school year.
School year, so they do get time off.
Yes.
They could actually practice, I guess, what they're learning.
Yes.
If they could get a job in
Many
that
of them
field.
do get summer employment through that internship or work-based learning program.
This has really been certainly great for me and definitely very educational for me. So I thank you so much. I'd like to let our audience know that our guests today have been Judith Hynes. She is the Associate Director, and Dr. Christopher Korolczuk. He is the Assistant Director, both from Nassau BOCES Regional Schools and Instructional Programs. Judith and Christopher, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us. It was a pleasure.
I'm Bill Horan. I'd like you to know that you've been listening to this week's edition of My Hometown.
We like to get your feedback on My Hometown. Send your comments to whpc@ncc.edu. Nassau Community College, where success starts and continues. Till next time, this is Bill St. James. And remember, there's no town like your hometown.